Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another brand new Jurassic World Dominion set to take a look at, and this time we have two more of the Sound Surge figures, one of which we kind of have reviewed in the past, which is the T-Rex, and then we also have the brand new Giganotosaurus for the Sound Surge line. But what's interesting about the T-Rex is it looks like the T-Rex might have been the same one that was originally released, which I was unable to acquire because they had never shown up here in the United States. And the one that I had previously reviewed was a newer Dominion-style coloration with much darker colors rather than the lighter tones of brown that we see on this one. So I'm actually really excited that this one is included because it's a version that I don't have, a variant of the Sound Surge Rex that I don't have, and I now do, and that is really good news because I had pretty much given up hope on the Sound Surge line until they recently had begun showing up on Big Bad Toy Store and now apparently on Kohl's, because that's where I acquired this one. This set was on Big Bad Toy Store and I didn't order it because I didn't realize that the Rex was a different color. I thought it was the same Dominion version that we already had reviewed, and now looking back on it, I wish I had ordered this one right away because I would have had, the Giganotosaurus a lot quicker and the alternate tone of color for the Rex earlier, but regardless, I found this one on Kohl's, so either way, I was still able to acquire it. But you can see the box art's pretty cool because we have, again, the usual Dominion-style box art with the Dominion logo and the Rex up above it. But here to the right, we have a window area where we can see both figures, one on top of each other, and there's also a little area where you can kind of stick your finger in and sample the sounds for our figures, which is pretty cool. And then here on the back of the package, you can again see a sneak peek, kind of a preview of both the Giganotosaurus as well as the T-Rex. So let's go ahead, pop these out of the box, and check them out. So here is our Tyrannosaurus Rex, and then here is our Giganotosaurus, and both are actually pretty cool. A quick readjustment of the camera to get a better shot of them. But the Giganotosaurus, again, it's kind of showing the weaker side of the figure because these figures being Sound Surge, they're almost the equivalent of what a basic figure would be with a little added extra as far as sound and some more articulation. And on the left side of the figures, it seems like it's always the left side. You always have this area for the sound as well as the battery compartment. So the left side of the dinosaurs is a little bit uglier than the right side. Once we turn it around, we take a look at the right side. You can see it looks way nicer over here than it did on the initial side. And of course, you're going to see the same thing with the T-Rex as far as the battery compartment and everything goes. But I really like the Giganotosaurus, actually. I've seen the sculpt of the Rex before. I have, again, the darker version. The Giganotosaurus, this is like, it's, the main dinosaur, it seems, for Dominion, kind of. I mean, it's like the main bad guy dinosaur, but we don't have as many figures out of it as you would like to think here in the United States. So it is pretty neat to actually have a decent-sized one, one that's not super huge but not super small here with the Sound Surge version. And the Rex I do quite like. Of course, both are fairly lacking when it comes to paintwork, but I still do like the fact that there is an alternate paint variant of the Rex. The older version, which I think looks pretty nice overall, just needed more coloration, but again, being basic kind of style figures, it's sort of to be expected to have that basic style paint. So let's go ahead, jump straight to a closer look at both of these right now. So starting with the T-Rex, as far as this one goes, it's definitely the same sculpt as the previously reviewed version. This was, I believe, the first release of it, though, so this one was the original version of the Rex. And you can see as far as the sculpt goes, it's an absolutely fantastic sculpt. When it comes to Mattel, they never, ever skimp out when it comes to giving you a really highly detailed sculpt. Sometimes they're not always the most accurate sculpts, but this one's fairly screen accurate, kind of follows the same trend as most of the Mattel Rexes. But the only thing that would really be different on this one would definitely be the coloration. So for the face, you can see that we have actually not just the face, but the majority of the body. We have a nice light brown for the body of our Rex. But then leading back up here to the face, you can see that we have a darker brown around the eye that kind of borders and rings around the eye socket area, darkening the eye, which I do quite like. For the lower jaw, you kind of have like a light green, actually, and that does run the entire course of the lower jaw down here into the throat region, but it very quickly tapers off here in the chest region, and then you can no longer see that at all. It's just gone. We have no coloration, honestly, out here for the second half of the figure at all. You can see that there's no nail paint. Of of course, we really don't expect that. Very glossy look for the legs of this one, but you don't have any coloration aside from a speckling, and you can kind of see the speckling here when you look up here at the top of the figure. So it does have that going for it, but outside of, again, the tones of color like this, and then the dark brown, and then the light brown, you really don't have much else. You can see the darker brown, though, does kind of splotch all over the top of the neck, and that designs down here through the course of the neck, down till we get about the shoulder area before that tapers off as well. We do have painted eyes with a yellow, and it does have a nice black pupil, so that is a plus, and the eye placement looks pretty good. Not picture perfect, but pretty good for the most part. We do have painted teeth, but only on the upper jaw, which I always felt like was very strange about this figure, but you can see that we have kind of like an off-white coloration for the teeth of the upper jaw, no coloration for the teeth of the lower jaw, no coloration for the inside of the mouth at all, the tongue or anything, that's not painted. And then you can again see that the eye paint over here actually looks really good. That eye is placed perfectly on this side. But outside of that, again, there is just zero color to this figure. So really basic paint apps for these figures. But I do really, again, like the fact that I have the alternate paint variant now for this Rex. So if you happen to have ordered the first one that I had reviewed from Big Bad Toy Store and you were looking to get this coloration as well, it is still available. I thought at this point it would have been retired, but luckily it's in this set. And then you have the Giganotosaurus. Now we have not reviewed this one at all, so this is a brand new figure to me. And you can see looking up here on the face of our Giganotosaurus, it has some really nice looking scale detail, like super nice scale detail. Look at how beautiful that looks. Really nicely popping on the sculpt, like it's incredibly vibrant. You can see the nostrils are sculpted out, and something that we see often portrayed on this Giganotosaurus that you also probably had seen or noticed in Dominion are like scars and injuries all over the place. It is completely loaded with that here on the face. You even have that tear in the gum right there where the gum should kind of be showing. It does actually have that tear, which is really cool. You can see the nostrils sculpted nicely. The eye area is also sculpted nicely. You've got some nice, creases and everything there in the eye socket area. You can also see the eyes are painted with a yellow, given a black pupil. It's not perfectly placed, but it looks pretty good for the most part. You also have some dark blacks that kind of run down and splotch all through the face, which definitely looks cool. We do have an articulated jaw, and one thing I love about the Sound Surge figures is that the jaw is just straight up articulated. There's no action feature or anything like that messing that aspect up. It's just a straight up articulated jaw. You can see the teeth are sculpted pretty nicely, but unlike the Rex, we have zero paintwork for the teeth at all. At least on the Rex, we had the upper jaw painted, but since this one, the teeth kind of interlock, very crocodilian-like, you don't see any specific color for the teeth, so a little less coloration in that aspect on this one. You can see a beautifully textured tongue on the inside of the mouth, though, and you can definitely pick up on the fact that we have a speckling because you can see that they're all over the tongue and on the inside of the mouth. Nice detailing to the inside of the mouth, just no coloration. And then looking over here at the opposing side, you can see the eye placement actually looks a little better, I think, over here, but sculpt-wise and everything, it looks beautiful on this side also. And then as we start to lead back, you start to see those very large ridges picking up on the top of the animal, and you can see more of that darker black coloration there kind of running down and striping and splotching throughout. It also has that kind of armored type of a scoot-like appearance running down the course of the neck. You can see more really nice skin detail as well as more scars and stuff throughout. Lots of wrinkling and creasing here in the neck region of our Giganotosaurus. You can also see the throat here on the underside. Really cool, very almost crocodilian-like look to the scales right there as well. You can see that the scales on the underside of the lower jaw also look really quite nice. Moving back, you again have that area for the sound to escape from, as well as the battery compartment, and you can even see scars and everything within that area. And then leading back up here, you start to pick up on those larger ridges running along the back of our Giganotosaurus, and we do continue to have that armored look through the entire course of the figure, but we also continue to have that darker tone of color, that like black or very dark gray, splotching all over the upper side until we get a little bit past the hip region, and you can see it already disappearing, and we don't have any coloration then leading out the length of the tail, unfortunately. Leading down here into the calf muscle and thigh muscle, though, you can see both are really nicely defined, and again, gorgeous looking scale detail throughout, and just plethora of scars. Like, look at that. this Giganotosaurus clearly is a very confrontational dinosaur and has been through quite a few wars in its day, and you can see that it's very nicely displayed on the sculpt. You've also got the kneecap right there. Moving down into the foot sculpt also looks beautiful, really nicely sculpted scoots down the toes, gorgeous scale detail throughout the course of the toes. The nails as well look really good as far as the sculpt goes. You can see more of the speckling all throughout the feet and even out onto the nails. Unfortunately, no nail paint as per usual. The arms also look really good as far as the sculpt goes. You can see some nice muscle definition in the arms as well, and the actual sculpting of the fingers and everything looks really good. No nail paint yet again, and unfortunately, we do have pronated wrists, which is a downside, but that's something that you usually see on Mattel figures, I would say. Until recently, it seems like they started to actually correct the wrists a little bit, but this is a recent figure as well, and they did not do it with this one. But as you move back here again, you can see more scars back behind the thigh, leading out into the tail. You continue to have that very armored look, that heavily armored look for the upper part of the Giganotosaurus. And the speckling does appear to run the entire course of the body. We can see it here all the way out onto the tail, which does add a very, very slight bit of paint difference to the figure, color difference, but not really enough to make a big difference on the figure as a whole. And you can see that we have a nice curve there, a very slight curve at the end of the tail. And then, of course, over here, this is definitely the superior side, especially when looking at the stomach region. You can see lots of creasing again here in the neck region, though. Really nice skin detail as you move through the entire course of the figure. You can kind of pick up on the shoulder blade and everything over here. The stomach region looks great as far as the scale detail and the fine detail goes. Lots of skin wrinkles down here in the lower part of the stomach. And then again, scars everywhere. This thing is just completely overloaded with scars. And then moving back, the leg's going to look pretty much the same, of course, just in a different position. You can see this leg is leading, whereas the opposing leg was trailing. The muscle definition, the scale detail, everything looks really good over here, just like it did on the initial side. You've got the kneecap again over here, and just loaded with scars moving down the entire course of the leg. Beautiful, beautiful foot sculpt. Very reptilian style scaling down there on the foot sculpt of our Giganotosaurus. And we do have dew claws as well. Just, of course, no paintwork for any of the claws. And then moving back up here, you can see again a few more scars, as well as some more really nice skin detail leading the entire course of the tail. Very nice skin detail here on the underside as well. And I have heard from some people that the Giganotosaurus sculpt isn't perfectly screen accurate. I'm not 100% sure what aspects of the Giganotosaurus aren't perfectly screen accurate, because I'm not too familiar with the Giga quite yet. Like, I haven't seen it enough to really pick up on every ounce of detail. I haven't seen enough images or anything of it yet, but from my understanding of the Giganotosaurus, this one definitely looks pretty good. Not perfect, I will say that. I could just specifically see the head looks a little bit kind of off as far as the Giganotosaurus looks, but overall I think it's a really cool version of the Giganotosaurus from Dominion, and definitely another really neat Mattel figure for sure. As far as articulation on our figures goes, you do have the articulated jaw, which can open pretty wide. You also have articulation in the arms, forward and back. They don't come out away from the body or anything like that. Articulation in the legs, forward and back, and you do also have ankle articulation, so that's pretty nice to have a little extra articulation. The legs do come out a little bit from the body, but not very far. And then you also have a tail, which can move left, right, up, down, and swivel, so quite a bit of articulation there. And then same deal, I believe, for the Giganotosaurus. I think it's exactly the same articulation. So you've got the articulated jaw, of course, works really nicely. You can see that also can open very wide. Articulation in the arms, forward and back. I like having them held into the body a bit more naturally. And then leg articulation, forward and back. And then the swivel in the ankle area. It doesn't seem like they move out away from the body at all, but then you also have the tail again, up, down, left, right, all of that. Swivel and everything, so quite a bit of articulation there. And then as far as the sounds go for our figures, that was a very long roar. Sounds like there might have been two different ones. And then we've got the Rex, so we'll hear the Rex's roars. That is as classic as it gets. So it definitely sounds like we have 3 different roars for our Rex. I only noticed a difference in 2 of the Giga, but I could be mistaken. So can't say for sure that, that's how many roars they had for each, but it seemed like 2 for the Giga, 3 for the Rex, and there are also buttons on the top as far as how you activate those. Again, the ridges, the larger ridges, are the button on the Giga, and then there's just a very obvious button on the top of the Rex. As far as a size goes, we'll actually move the Rex entirely out of here and get the Giganotosaurus here in frame. For a length on the Giganotosaurus, you are looking at about the 14-inch range, or around 35.5 centimeters, and then height-wise, top of the neck is definitely the highest point, a little over, actually I would say right about on 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. And then for the Tyrannosaurus Rex, which should be exactly the same as the previously released version, for a length about 14.25 inches, or right around 36, closing in on 36.5 centimeters. And then for a height, you're looking at 5.25 inches, or a little over 13, maybe closing in on 13.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Sound Surge figures. And you can see that even though they are smaller, less articulated, less painted figures than most of your Mattel line, you can still see that they sport a pretty good size. Even if they are a little bit smaller than most of your Tyrannosaurs and Giganotosaurus figures that are out there, they do still sport a fairly impressive size overall. I would say probably a similar size to like a Roarivore version. And to show you that, there is the Roar Attack or Roarivore, I forget what kind of version this one was, but of Bumpy the Ankylosaurus next to our Sound Surge figures here. And you can definitely see that they fit right there in that same similar size range, I would say, as far as like a Roar Attack, Roarivore, Roar Strikers type of a figure. And then for one final comparison, when it comes to Mattel figures, there are very few that reach the level of a Velociraptor, so most people probably have at least a Velociraptor in their collection. So here is a Mattel Velociraptor, the Extreme Damage version, the newer Extreme Damage version, next to our Sound Surge Giganotosaurus and T-Rex. So this brand new Tyrannosaurus Rex versus Giganotosaurus Sound Surge set is really cool, actually. Definitely a fun set that I am a fan of. I know a lot of people don't really dig these Sound Surge figures very much because they're really basic, they don't have much going for them, and they have the ugly left-hand sides of the figures with the, battery compartment and everything. It's almost like Mattel wasn't really trying very hard with these figures, because I feel like they really could have still put that stuff on the underside, but they chose to, for some reason, put it on the left-hand side. And yes, the left-hand sides of the figures are without a doubt a eyesore. Like, there's no getting around that. That stuff is definitely an eyesore on these figures, but on the right-hand side, they look way nicer, and as a whole, I feel like they still are really nice figures, just not as nice as most of the Mattel line. But sculpt-wise, the 2 figures that we have here are really nicely done. The Tyrannosaurus, again, sports that classic Mattel Rex type of a look, and even the classic type of paint job as far as the coloration goes. You normally have a little more color on a standard Mattel Rex, not too much more. Maybe if you'd reach that darker color down there onto the hip region and include paint on the inside of the mouth, that'd probably be like your standard Mattel Rex, but we again just have a little bit less on this one as far as coloration goes than we normally do, but we do still have some fun articulation as well as some really cool sounds for our T-Rex, and I love the fact that the jaw is articulated. Not a big fan of the way they articulate it with the very obvious seam, but the fact that it is an articulated jaw is definitely a huge plus. And then the Giganotosaurus as well, I think, is excellent looking, really nice looking sculpt overall, sporting tons of fine detail, really vibrant fine detail. I feel like the detail on the Giganotosaurus is much more vibrant than the detail on the T-Rex, because the T-Rex is an older sculpt, so you can see just looking at the 2 of these together how much Mattel has improved as far as how vibrant their detail is now compared to their older sculpts. But the Giganotosaurus does have a really nice look to it. As a whole, Mattel did do a very good job on the sculpt, especially when it comes to the fine detail of the figure. Of course, with these figures, it would be nice to have a little extra paintwork on them, like painted nails or even paint that runs the entire course of the figure, but that is a very, very common complaint from anyone looking at the Mattel figures. So being, like the basic versions of a Mattel Dinosaur with a little bit of sound added and extra articulation. I really don't expect a stellar paint job. But honestly, as a whole, I do think this is a pretty fun set, and it's awesome to have a little bit of a smaller version of both the Rex and the Giganotosaurus here to add to our collections. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase this, either on Big Bad Toy Store if they happen to have any more back in stock, or on Kohl's where I ordered mine. One way or another, I definitely recommend picking them up if you like this kind of figure, the more basic kind of sound style figures. Again, Sound Surge figures. So if you are interested, make sure you check the link in the description, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.